"Buy them for me, Daddy," said the millionaire's son when he saw two street girls shivering from the cold. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching us from. We continue. I promise this will be the best story you've ever heard in your life. The rain hammered against the windshield as Robert Mitchell pulled his black sedan into the parking lot of Sweet Dreams ice cream parlor. His son, 8-year-old Danny, pressed his face against the window, eyes bright with anticipation despite the storm raging outside. This is what we do now, Robert thought bitterly. Ice cream runs to fill the silence where a mother's voice should be. 2 years since the separation, and still every moment felt like walking through broken glass, trying not to let Danny see him bleed. Robert, CEO of Mitchell Global Enterprises, one of the most powerful conglomerates in Chicago, had built an empire on calculated risks and strategic acquisitions. But nothing in his boardroom experience had prepared him for the devastation of divorce or the weight of raising a son alone. His ex-wife Caroline had chosen her career in New York over their family. The custody battle had been brutal, public, and ultimately Robert had won. But victories he'd learned didn't always feel like winning. "Come on, Dad." Danny was already unbuckling his seatbelt, rain or no rain. Robert grabbed an umbrella from the back seat. "All right, but we make it quick, in and out." They dashed through the downpour, Danny laughing as puddles splashed around his sneakers. Inside the shop, warmth and the sweet scent of waffle cones embraced them. Danny ordered his usual mint chocolate chip with rainbow sprinkles, while Robert got black coffee. Always coffee. Sleep had become a luxury he couldn't afford, not with quarterly reports, merger negotiations, and a son who still had nightmares about his mother leaving. The teenager behind the counter handed over the ice cream with a tired smile. Danny attacked it immediately, green streaks already forming at the corners of his mouth. Robert paid, left a generous tip, and guided his son back toward the door. That's when Danny stopped. "Dad, look." Robert followed his son's gaze through the rain-streaked window. Across the street, beneath the faded awning of an abandoned bookstore, two girls huddled together. They couldn't have been more than 10 or 11 years old, identical twins from what Robert could see, soaked to the bone, shivering, their clothes plastered to their thin frames. One had her arm wrapped protectively around the other. Danny's ice cream cone lowered. "Dad, they're freezing." Robert felt the familiar tightening in his chest. The world was full of suffering. He donated millions to charities, funded shelters, supported programs for at-risk youth. But he couldn't save everyone. He couldn't even save his own marriage. "Come on, Danny, we need to get home." "But Dad, now, Danny." His son's face crumpled, that look of disappointment Robert had seen too many times. The look that said, "I thought you were better than this." Robert hated that look. He hated himself for causing it. They stepped outside, umbrella raised against the assault of rain. Danny walked slowly, reluctantly, casting glances back at the girls. Robert's hand was on the car door handle when he heard it. The roar of an engine, too loud, too fast, growing closer. He turned. A delivery truck, massive and white, careened around the corner. The driver slumped over the wheel, unconscious or worse. The truck mounted the curb, heading straight for the ice cream shop, straight for where Robert and Danny stood, frozen in its path. Time fractured into crystalline shards. Robert's body moved, but too slow. Everything too slow. He reached for Danny, but his son stood paralyzed, ice cream cone falling from his hand, eyes wide with terror. Then a blur of motion. One of the twin girls, the one who'd been holding her sister, sprinted across the street with impossible speed. She slammed into Danny with the full force of her small body, shoving him backward just as the truck's front bumper swept through the space where he'd been standing. The girl went down hard, Danny on top of her. They tumbled across the wet pavement. The truck smashed into a fire hydrant with a screech of metal and a geyser of water, finally coming to a shuddering stop. Robert's heart hammered so hard, he thought it might break through his ribs. He ran to Danny, pulled him up, hands frantically checking for injuries. His son was crying, gasping, but whole. Alive. The girl lay on the ground, clutching her left arm. Her face was twisted in pain, but she didn't make a sound. The other twin ran to her side, dropping to her knees in the growing puddle. Oh God, Emma, are you okay?" The second girl's voice cracked with panic. Robert knelt beside them, his expensive suit soaking through. "Let me see." The injured girl, Emma, pulled back slightly, distrust flashing in her dark eyes. But her sister gently coaxed her arm forward. Robert examined it carefully. Not broken, he thought, but badly bruised, possibly sprained. The girl's knees were scraped raw, blood mixing with rainwater. "You saved my son," Robert said, his voice rough with emotion he couldn't name. "You saved Danny." Emma met his gaze, and Robert saw something ancient in those young eyes, something that had seen too much, survived too much. "Is he okay?" she asked quietly. Danny pushed forward, tears streaming down his face. "I'm okay because of you. Thank you. Thank you so much." By now a crowd had gathered. Someone had called 911. Sirens wailed in the distance. The truck driver was being pulled from the cab, alive but injured. Robert should have been relieved, should have been focused on his son, but all he could see were these two girls, these children who had nothing, who lived under an abandoned bookstore's awning, and one of them had just risked everything for a stranger. "What are your names?" Robert asked. The uninjured twin answered, her voice steady despite the chaos. "I'm Lily. This is Emma. We're sisters. Where are your parents?" A shadow passed over both their faces. "Gone," Lily said simply. Robert's mind raced. The paramedics would be here soon. They'd ask questions. Social services would get involved. These girls would end up in the system, separated maybe, lost in bureaucracy. He'd seen it happen before, had read the reports, knew the statistics. Danny tugged on his sleeve. "Dad, we have to help them. We have to." The paramedics arrived, efficient and professional. They checked Danny first, then Emma, wrapping her arm and cleaning her wounds. Robert gave his statement to the police, explained what happened, how this brave girl had saved his son's life. The officers looked at the twins with a mixture of pity and suspicion. "Where do you girls live?" one officer asked. Lily's jaw set. "Around. You can't just live around. You're minors. We need to contact your guardian." "We don't have one," Emma said quietly, wincing as the paramedic secured her bandage. The officers exchanged glances. "Then we'll need to—" "I'll take responsibility for them," Robert heard himself say. The words came out before he'd fully thought them through, but once spoken, they felt right, inevitable. "Sir, you can't just—" "My son is alive because of this girl. The least I can do is buy them a warm meal and find them proper shelter for the night. I'll contact the appropriate agencies in the morning." It wasn't entirely true, and the officers knew it, but Robert Mitchell was not a man easily argued with. His name carried weight in Chicago. His lawyers were legendary. After some discussion, and Robert's assurance that he'd bring the girls to social services first thing in the morning, the officers reluctantly agreed. An hour later, Robert sat in a booth at Rosie's Diner, a 24-hour place he'd frequented during his college days. Danny sat next to Emma, chattering nervously, trying to make her smile. Lily sat across from them, next to Robert, her eyes constantly scanning the room, looking for threats, for exits. "Order whatever you want," Robert said, sliding menus across the table. The girls stared at the laminated pages like they were written in a foreign language. Finally, Lily said, "Pancakes. And hot chocolate." Emma nodded. "Same." Danny ordered a burger, though he'd just had ice cream. Robert got more coffee. When the food arrived, the twins ate with controlled desperation, trying not to appear too hungry, too desperate, but Robert saw through it. These girls were starving. "How long have you been on the streets?" he asked gently. Lily's eyes flicked to him, calculating. "A while. What happened to your parents?" The question hung in the air. Emma's hand trembled slightly as she set down her fork. Lily reached over, squeezed her sister's uninjured hand. "There. Gone," Lily repeated. "That's all that matters." But it wasn't all that mattered, and Robert knew it. He was about to press further when the television mounted in the corner of the diner caught his attention. The news was on, volume low, but the images were striking. Flames consuming a mansion, firefighters battling the blaze, a reporter's solemn face. Robert couldn't hear the words, but the closed captions scrolled across the bottom of the screen. Tragic fire claims lives of prominent business couple, Thomas and Margaret Hartwell. Daughter, age 10, presumed lost in the blaze. Authorities investigating possible arson. Robert's blood went cold. He looked at the twins, really looked at them, their age, the timing, the fear in their eyes. Lily followed his gaze to the television. Her face went pale. Emma made a small, choked sound. "That's you," Robert said quietly. "Isn't it?" For a long moment nobody spoke. Danny looked confused, glancing between his father and the girls. The diner's ambient noise, the clatter of dishes, the murmur of other conversations, all seemed to fade into white noise. Finally, Lily nodded. Once. Sharp and definite. "We're the Hartwell twins," she whispered. "Our parents died in that fire 3 months ago, but we weren't home when it happened. We were at a friend's house for a sleepover. When we came back the next morning, everything was gone. Our house, our parents, everything." Emma's voice joined her sister's, soft and broken. "We heard them before the fire. 2 men. We were supposed to be asleep, but I got up for water. They were in Dad's study, arguing with him, threatening him, saying he had 1 week to sell the company or they'd make him disappear. Dad refused. He said he'd built Hartwell Industries for us, for his daughters, and he'd never hand it over to criminals." Lily continued, her words tumbling out now, a dam finally breaking. "We didn't know what to do. We were scared. We told our parents, and they sent us to stay with a friend that night, said they'd handle it. But they didn't handle it. The men came back and burned our house down with our parents inside." Robert felt sick. Thomas Hartwell. He knew that name. Knew the company. Hartwell Industries had been a rising star in the tech sector, innovative, ethical, beloved by employees and investors alike. Then it had collapsed seemingly, overnight. Scandal, fraud allegations, and finally tragedy. But Robert's own company, Mitchell Global Enterprises, had acquired several of Hartwell's contracts in the aftermath, picked up their best engineers, absorbed their market share. He'd thought it was just business, just the natural cycle of corporate evolution. He'd never questioned the convenient timing. "Oh God," he thought. "What if I profited from their destruction?" "Why didn't you go to the police?" Robert asked, though he already suspected the answer. "Because we don't know who to trust," Lily said. "The men who threatened our father, they knew things, private things. They had access. What if they have people in the police? What if they're looking for us? The news says we're presumed lost in the fire. As long as everyone thinks we're gone, we're safe." Safe, Robert thought bitterly. Living on the streets, starving, freezing, alone. This is what safety looks like for them. Emma's eyes filled with tears. "We just want to survive, until we're old enough to find out the truth, to make them pay for what they did to our parents." Danny's hand found Emma's across the table. "You're not alone anymore," he said with the absolute certainty only a child could possess. "My dad will help you. He's really good at fixing things." Robert wished he had his son's faith. He'd built an empire, yes, but he'd also failed at his marriage, failed to see the corruption that might have been happening right under his nose. How could he promise to protect these girls when he couldn't even protect his own family? But looking at their faces, at the hope and fear warring in their expressions, he knew he had no choice. "I can't promise I'll fix everything," Robert said slowly, "but I can promise you won't spend another night on the streets. You'll stay with us tonight. Tomorrow we'll figure out the next steps together." "You said you'd take us to social services," Lily said, suspicion creeping back into her voice. "I lied," Robert admitted. "I'm very good at that when I need to be." For the first time since he'd met them, Lily smiled. It was small, fragile, but real. They finished their meal in relative silence, the weight of revelations settling over the table like snow. When they left the diner, the rain had stopped. The streets gleamed under streetlights, washed clean, at least on the surface. Robert drove them to his penthouse in downtown Chicago, a sprawling space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Danny gave the girls a tour, showing them the guest rooms, the library, the game room. Their eyes went wide at the luxury, but also wary, like they were waiting for the catch, for the moment it would all be taken away. Robert set them up in adjacent guest rooms, found clean clothes that were too big but warm, made sure they had everything they needed. When he finally tucked Danny into bed, his son grabbed his hand. "We're keeping them. Right, Dad? We're not letting them go back out there." Robert smoothed his son's hair. "We'll do everything we can." "That's not an answer." "I know," Robert said softly, "but it's the only one I have right now." He left Danny's room and found Lily standing in the hallway, looking out the massive windows at the city below. "Can't sleep?" Robert asked. "Not used to beds this comfortable," she said. "Or safety. It makes me nervous." Robert stood beside her. "I knew your father. Not well, but I knew of him. He was a good man, brilliant, ethical. Everything I should have been." Lily looked up at him. "You bought his company's pieces after he was gone." Robert nodded. "I did. I didn't ask questions. I should have. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't bring him back." "No," Robert agreed, "but maybe it can help keep you and your sister alive. And maybe if we're very careful and very smart, it can help us find out who really destroyed your family." Lily's eyes narrowed. "Why would you help us? You don't know us." "Because your sister saved my son's life," Robert said. "Because you're children who deserve better than what you've been given. And because I've spent the last 2 years building walls around my heart, telling myself that business is just business, that I can't save everyone. But tonight, I think maybe I can save someone. Maybe I can save you." Lily was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "The organization that killed our parents, they're powerful. If you help us, they'll come after you too." "Let them come," Robert said, and he meant it. "I've been playing it safe for too long. Maybe it's time I remembered how to fight." Lily nodded slowly. "Okay. But we do this together. No secrets, no lies." "No secrets," Robert agreed, though he knew that was a promise neither of them could truly keep. As Lily returned to her room, Robert stood alone at the window, looking out at the city he'd conquered through ambition and ruthlessness. Somewhere out there, the people who'd destroyed the Hartwell family were sleeping soundly, confident in their power, their invincibility. They had no idea what was coming. Robert pulled out his phone and made a call to his head of security. "I need you to run a deep background check on the Hartwell Industries collapse. Everything. I don't care how long it takes or what it costs. I want to know every detail. Sir, that case is closed. The official report—" "I don't care about the official report," Robert interrupted. "I care about the truth." He ended the call and made another, this time to his lawyer. "I need you to draw up temporary guardianship papers for 2 minors. Quietly, no publicity. Can you have them ready by morning?" "Of course, Mr. Mitchell. May I ask—" "No," Robert said. "You may not. One more call. This one to an old friend, someone he'd known since college, someone who owed him favors and had connections in places Robert preferred not to think about. Marcus, I need information on a criminal organization operating in Chicago. High-level corporate sabotage, possible connections to arson and worse. Can you help?" Marcus's voice was cautious. "Robert, what are you getting yourself into?" "Something I should have gotten into a long time ago," Robert said. "Something right." When he finally went to bed, it was nearly 3 in the morning. He lay in the darkness, listening to the silence of his too large penthouse, and for the first time in 2 years he felt something other than emptiness. He felt purpose. In the guest room down the hall, Emma whispered to her sister through the darkness, "Do you think we can trust him?" Lily thought about the man who'd taken them in, fed them, promised to help them. A man who had everything to lose and nothing to gain. "I think," Lily whispered back, "that maybe we don't have a choice." "But Emma, if this goes wrong—" "It won't," Emma said with surprising firmness. "Did you see his son's eyes? That little boy believes in his father completely, and his father looked at us like we mattered. When was the last time anyone looked at us like that?" Lily couldn't answer. Because the truth was, not since their parents had been taken from them had anyone looked at them with anything other than pity or suspicion. Maybe, just maybe, they'd found something they thought was lost forever. A home. Outside, the city slept, unaware that the pieces were moving, that a game had begun that would shake the foundations of power itself. The Hartwell twins had survived the fire that was meant to erase them, and now with an unlikely ally they would rise from the ashes. But first, they would have to learn to trust again. And trust, they both knew, was the most dangerous thing of all. 15 years had reshaped Chicago's skyline, but some shadows never faded. Emma Hartwell, though she no longer used that name, stood behind the front desk of the Grandeur Hotel, invisible to the wealthy guests passing through. Perfect. Invisibility had kept her alive. Her sister Lily worked in the digital underground, tracking the people who destroyed their family. They'd taken new identities courtesy of Marcus Chen, a brilliant hacker who'd found them 3 years after that. Night at Robert Mitchell's penthouse. Marcus had given them the tools to survive and eventually to fight back. After years of investigation, they finally had a name for their enemy, the Marble Dome, an elite network of power brokers who controlled markets and erased anyone threatening their vision of order. They operated through symbols and encrypted communications, led by 6 leaders called the Ivory Council. The most feared was the archivist, a phantom who left only devastation and forged documents. Emma's phone buzzed, a text from Lily. Meeting tonight. Marcus has something. 8 p.m. That evening, Emma arrived at Marcus's warehouse safe house. Lily was already there, laptop glowing in the darkness. Marcus has found a pattern, Lily said urgently. Every collapsed company had the same markers. Fabricated scandals, suspicious accidents, and Emma, Mitchell Global Enterprises, is their next target. Emma's heart stopped. Robert Mitchell. They've arranged his marriage to Victoria Ashford. Her family is part of the Dome. 2 years after the wedding, he'll have an accident, and everything becomes theirs. Marcus arrived carrying a metal briefcase. He set it down, his expression dark. Bad news first. They know one of you is alive. They're actively searching. Emma felt the world tilt. 15 years of hiding compromised. The good news? Marcus opened the briefcase, revealing a hard drive. This contains everything: financial records, communication logs, video evidence, names, dates, crimes, everything to bring them down. Before they could celebrate, engines roared outside. Black SUVs surrounded the building. Men in tactical gear emerged, weapons drawn. "Go!" Marcus shouted, shoving the briefcase into Lily's hands. "Tunnel in the back. It leads to subway maintenance. I'm uploading the data to secure cloud backup. Now move." Emma grabbed her sister as gunfire erupted behind them. They ran through a hidden tunnel, emerging into subway corridors. Lily checked her phone. Marcus got it uploaded. "We have everything." They found a cheap motel and worked through the night, securing the data. At dawn, Lily spoke. "We need to find Robert Mitchell. Today." "The Grandeur Hotel," Emma said. "He's there for a conference. I saw his name yesterday." They used Emma's credentials to access the service areas and waited. During lunch break, Robert stepped out, and Emma approached. "Mr. Mitchell, my name is Emma Hartwell. This is Lily. You knew us long ago." Recognition crashed across his face. "The twins. You're alive." "Barely," Lily said. "And you're in danger. We need to talk privately." In Robert's suite, they spread the evidence across the table. His face paled with each document, each video. "Victoria," he whispered. "She's part of this." "Her entire family," Emma confirmed. "The marriage gives them access to your company. 2 years later, they'll stage your disappearance. Everything becomes theirs." Robert picked up a photograph showing him and Victoria at a gala. Behind them stood a man with cold eyes and a marble pin, the archivist. "I've been such a fool," Robert said. "You couldn't have known," Lily replied. "They've perfected this for decades." A knock interrupted them. Robert opened the door to his son Danny, now a tall young man with kind eyes. "Dad, the afternoon session is starting." He stopped, seeing the twins. His eyes widened. "It's you," The girl who saved my life. Emma stood, suddenly self-conscious. "Hi, Danny." He crossed the room and hugged her. "I've thought about you every day for 15 years. Robert explained everything. Danny's expression hardened. "We go public. We expose everything. Today." "They'll come after us," Lily warned. "Let them come," Robert said. "I'm not running anymore." As they prepared to leave, the door burst. "Open." Victoria Ashford stood there with armed security guards. "Oh, Robert," she said coldly. "You were supposed to stay ignorant." Guards moved forward, but Danny stepped protectively in front of Emma. Victoria laughed. "These girls should have been erased 15 years ago. We're correcting that mistake now." Lily ducked under a guard's arm, slamming her laptop into his face. Emma swept Victoria's legs. "The window!" Robert shouted. "Fire escape!" They ran, crashing through the balcony door onto the old fire escape. Gunfire shattered windows behind them. They climbed down, jumped to a scaffold, and disappeared into the downtown crowd. Hours later, they regrouped at a private broadcast studio Robert had secured. Lawyers, security, and journalists from major networks waited. "Are you sure?" a lawyer asked. "There's no taking this back." Robert looked at the twins and Danny. "I've never been more sure." The broadcast went live at 8 p.m., interrupting regular programming. Robert sat with the Hartwell twins beside him, evidence displayed on screens behind them. "My name is Robert Mitchell, and I'm here to expose a criminal organization that has operated in shadows for decades, destroying lives for profit and power." For 30 minutes, he revealed everything. The marble dome, the Ivory Council, the archivist. He named politicians and business leaders, showed documents and videos. Then he introduced the twins. "These are Emma and Lily Hartwell. They survived. They fought back. Today, they're reclaiming their lives." The response was explosive. Federal agencies launched investigations. International warrants were issued. The dome's facade crumbled. That night, assassins tried breaching their safe house. Robert threw himself in front of Emma as bullets shattered windows. They fought together until reinforcements arrived. Afterward, covered in glass but alive, Robert took Emma's hand. "I'm sorry I didn't protect you 15 years ago. You gave us hope," Emma said. "You showed us good people still existed. That was enough." Over following weeks, the dome collapsed. Arrests were made. Trials began. Victoria testified against the Ivory Council for a reduced sentence. The archivist was captured, fleeing the country. Emma and Lily stayed with Robert and Danny, the family they'd found and lost and found again. Slowly, fear faded. They learned to live instead of survive. 6 months later, Emma enrolled at Northwestern to study corporate ethics. Lily helped federal investigators track remaining dome members. One evening on Robert's penthouse balcony, he held out a small box containing a ring. "This isn't a demand, it's a promise that you'll always have a home, always be safe, always be loved if you're ready." Emma looked at the ring, then at her sister and Danny watching with grins. She'd spent 15 years running. Maybe it was time to start living. "I'm ready," she said. A year later, they stood on a California beach. Small ceremony, just family and friends who'd helped them survive. Lily stood as maid of honor. Danny gave a speech about the girl who'd saved his life. Victoria sent a letter from witness protection. "You deserve happiness." Emma chose to believe in redemption. As Robert and Emma exchanged vows, sun broke through clouds, painting everything gold. Federal agents watched discreetly, reminders that safety was still earned. But Emma felt free. Free from fear. Free from the past. Free to love. "Thank you for saving my son," Robert whispered. "Thank you for saving me." "Nobody saves themselves alone," Emma replied. "We survived because we fought together. Now we live together." At the reception, Emma and Lily stood watching the ocean. "We made it," Lily said softly. "Mom and Dad would be proud," Emma agreed. "And Marcus, too." They remembered the hacker who'd sacrificed everything so they could be free. His legacy lived in new laws protecting whistleblowers, in corporate reforms prioritizing ethics, in two sisters who'd refused to disappear. Emma returned to her husband and family, to the life she'd thought impossible. The past would always be part of her, scars would remain, But scars proved survival, proved strength. Dancing with Robert under stars, Emma Hartwell Mitchell finally understood what it meant to be home.